Welcome back to Evidence Arrest Podcast, your deep dive into the most compelling true crime stories unfolding today. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join us as we explore the case of Cherrie Mahan. On February 22, 1985, an 8-year-old girl stepped off her school bus just 500 feet from home. Her name was Cherrie Mahan. Her mother was inside the house, close enough to hear the bus doors open, close enough to hear the tires crunch against the gravel road. And in the short walk from that bus stop to her front door, Cherrie vanished. No scream, no struggle, no trace. And nearly 40 years later, no answers. February 22, 1985, started like any other winter day in Cabot, Pennsylvania. Cold, quiet, rural. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where kids walk short distances home without a second thought. Cherrie Mahan was 8 years old. She was in second grade. She loved stickers, cartoons, and being outside. By all accounts, she was a normal kid living a normal life. That afternoon, Cherrie rode the school bus home like she always did. Other kids were dropped off along the way. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. Then the bus reached her stop, a small stretch of road just down from her house. She got off, the bus doors closed, and it drove away. Her home was only about 500 feet away, less than a minute. Her mother, Janice McKinney, was inside. She could hear the bus. She knew Cherrie had arrived. But Cherrie never walked through the door. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Maybe she stopped to play. Maybe she got distracted. But minutes passed, then more minutes, and something didn't feel right, because Cherrie always came straight home. Janice went outside, looked down the driveway. Nothing. No footprints, no sign of her daughter. And that's when panic set in. Within hours, people were searching. Neighbors, police, volunteers, the entire community turned out. Fields were combed, woods were searched, helicopters circled overhead. But there was nothing. No backpack, no clothing, no evidence. It was like she had simply vanished. When a child disappears, investigators start close to home. It's standard. Parents are questioned. Family dynamics are examined. And Cherrie's family was no exception. Police looked into her parents. They examined their relationships, their history, even her biological father's connections, including rumored ties to motorcycle gangs. But nothing concrete came from it. No evidence tying them to her disappearance. Then came one of the most chilling details in this case. Witnesses reported seeing a van, a blue or green van, following the school bus. And not just any van, one with a mural painted on the side. A mural, something distinctive, something memorable, and yet it was never identified. Despite the early momentum, the investigation hit a wall. Leads came in, but nothing stuck. No suspects, no solid evidence. Cherrie's face appeared everywhere. Flyers, billboards, milk cartons. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you might remember seeing her. As time passed, theories started to grow. Some believed she was abducted by a stranger. Others thought it was someone local. Someone who knew the area, knew the timing, knew she would be alone. There were whispers about cult involvement, rumors about organized groups, stories that spread quickly but never led anywhere solid. Then came something even more disturbing. Anonymous phone calls, letters, people claiming they knew where Cherrie was, or what had happened to her. But every single lead collapsed. Through all of this, one person never stopped searching. Janice McKinney, her mother. Year after year, she held on to hope. There's something about cases like this, where time doesn't really move forward the way it should. Because for everyone else, life continues. But for a parent, it just stops. Years turned into decades. Still no answers. Still no closure. Just questions. Then, nearly 40 years later, something changed. New allegations surfaced. pointing toward neighbors, including a man named John Montgomery. Around the same time, another name entered the conversation: William Buddy Montgomery, a convicted sex offender, already serving time in prison. And then something unexpected happened. Buddy Montgomery began exchanging letters with Janice. Buddy denied any involvement, but questions remained. Investigators, private detectives, and Cherrie's family all began looking deeper into these new leads. Could the answers have been there all along? Hidden in plain sight? Missed in the early investigation? This case is filled with almosts. Almost leads, almost suspects, almost answers, but never enough. For a long time, this case felt frozen in time, like everything that could be done already had been. But that's not true anymore, because in recent years, something has shifted. Law enforcement hasn't walked away from Cherrie's case. In fact, they've gone back to it, hard. The FBI, along with Pennsylvania State Police, have conducted new searches and excavations in areas not far from where Cherrie disappeared. And here's what matters about that. Searches like that don't just happen randomly. They usually come from specific information, a tip, a lead, something that points investigators to a very particular place. Which means, even decades later, someone may have said something. Cadaver dogs were also brought in, dogs trained to detect human remains, and reportedly, those dogs hit. They indicated that human remains could be in certain areas tied to the investigation. Now that doesn't automatically mean Cherrie has been found, but it does mean there could be something there, something buried, something hidden, for decades. And then, there's one of the most unsettling developments in this entire case. A prison inmate reached out to Cherrie's mother. Think about that. 40 years. Someone contacts you and says they might know something about your child. The man William Buddy Montgomery is a convicted sex offender already serving time. He began writing letters to Janice, claiming that his family may be connected to what happened to Cherrie. But at the same time, he denies being directly involved. He refuses to meet in person, and says he'll talk more when he is out of prison. This case has also gotten fresh attention from private investigators. And they're not just looking at it the old way. They're using modern forensic techniques, digital timeline reconstruction, even AI tools to analyze patterns in old tips and interviews. They've also put up a reward for information. And maybe the most powerful force behind all of this isn't law enforcement. It's not technology. It's not even the investigators. It's the people who never let this case disappear. A group called Cherrie's Angels, made up of family members, supporters, and advocates, has taken on the responsibility of keeping this case alive. They've gone back through old tips, and so on, old interviews, old theories, looking for anything that might have been missed, anything that didn't seem important at the time, but might matter now. For the first time in a long time, there's a sense that this case isn't just stuck in the past, it's moving. Slowly, but moving. And maybe, just maybe, the truth about what happened is on that road. Thank you for watching Evidence Arrest Podcast. If you want to hear more cases like this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Stay safe and take care of each other. William Farwell and Robert Devine. And what would eventually come out is that this wasn't mentorship. It was something else entirely. At first, everything may have looked normal from the outside, but behind the scenes, boundaries were being crossed. Messages, private communication, attention that went beyond what any adult should be giving a 13-year-old. And here's the thing about grooming. It doesn't start obvious. It builds slowly, quietly. So quietly that sometimes even the victim doesn't realize what's happening. Investigators would later say that Sandra became involved in a sexual relationship with one of those officers, Matthew Farwell. a man who had known her since she was a child. This wasn't something that happened overnight. Authorities would later describe a pattern that stretched over a decade, which is honestly hard to process. Because when you think about it, this wasn't a random encounter. This was someone in a position of authority, watching a child grow up, and allegedly manipulating that trust. And yet, for years, nothing happened. No charges, no major intervention, no accountability. There were warning signs. People noticed things. Concerns were raised. But somehow it never turned into real consequences. And this is one of those moments where you kind of want to pause and go, how does that happen? Like, seriously, how does something like this go on for years without someone stepping in? And the uncomfortable answer is, sometimes systems fail. By 2021, Sandra was 23 years old, still connected to people from that earlier part of her life, which, in grooming situations, isn't unusual. These relationships are complicated. They're built on years of manipulation, trust, and emotional dependence. And then, Sandra became pregnant. She was about 8 to 10 weeks along, and investigators would later suggest that Matthew Farwell was the father. In the days leading up to her death, Sandra was in contact with him. Messages, calls, ongoing communication. There was a connection that hadn't been broken. Then on February 4th, 2021, Sandra was found dead in her apartment. Within hours, authorities ruled it a suicide. No extended investigation, no deep dive into the circumstances, just a conclusion. And Sandra's family immediately pushed back, because to them, this didn't make sense. Not the timing, not the situation, not Sandra. When you look at cases like this, timing matters, details matter. And in Sandra's case, there were gaps, questions, things that didn't quite line up. And yet, the case didn't move. At least, not right away. Chief stepped in, Donna McNamara, and she made a decision that would change everything. She reopened the door. She started asking questions. And she launched an internal investigation. What came out of that investigation was massive. Thousands of messages, years of communication, evidence that painted a very different picture than what had originally been presented. And reading through those messages, you start to see patterns, control, manipulation, behavior that should have raised alarms long before it did. One of the hardest parts of this case is realizing how many chances there were to stop it. Because there were investigations earlier on, there were concerns, but they didn't lead to real action. And that's not just unfortunate, it's a failure. Then, in August 2024, the FBI stepped in. And this is where the case shifts dramatically. A 45-page federal affidavit laid out new findings, forensic evidence, expert analysis, behavioral conclusions, and the picture they described was very different from the original ruling. According to federal investigators, Sandra's death was not self-inflicted. They believe she was killed. And more than that, they believe she may have been silenced. That same day, Matthew Farwell was arrested, charged with killing a witness or victim, which is not a common charge. It's serious. It implies intent. It implies that someone believed Sandra posed a threat, not physically, but in what she knew. There's something about cases like this, where you go back to the beginning. A 13-year-old kid, excited, hopeful, wanting to do something good, and you just think she deserved so much better than this. As of now, the federal case is ongoing. There are still questions, still details being uncovered, and still a long road toward accountability. Sandra Birchmore deserved better. Better protection, better answers, better justice. And while the truth didn't come out right away, it's starting to. If you have any information related to this case, please contact the FBI or the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, because even now, the smallest detail could matter. Thank you for watching Evidence Arrest Podcast. If you want to hear more cases like this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Stay safe and take care of each other.